Alright, yo everyone, this is Jackie the anime guy, and today I'm going to bring to you guys the updated tier list for all the weapons in Solo Leveling Arise, and this is from July 2024. So to kick us off, I have put together this tier list, and straight off the bat, we're going to kind of break this down into two parts. One is Sung Jin Woo's weapons, and two is Hunter weapons. And what do I mean by that? So for those that don't know, when you go into the weapons here, you can see go weapons, and from Sung Jin Woo and Hunter's weapons are split into these two. So these weapons here can only use by Sung Jin Woo exclusively. None of your other hunters can equip these weapons, and vice versa for these hunter weapons. These can be equipped for any hunters, but Sung Jin Woo cannot equip them. Okay, so now that's out of the way, we're going to go into our tier list. First of all, I've categorized all the rares into it falls off late game, because early game they're still quite good, especially because you can ascend them to very high stars and they're actually quite powerful for your hunters. But as you get more of these weapons later on, these fall off and you would just not really use them. So I don't recommend you leveling up these rare weapons any higher than level 20. Okay, alright, next we're going to go into our hunter weapons first. So how we're going to categorize hunter weapons are, first, DPS is king in this game. So we're going to base it off how much DPS they actually help you with your units and how good they are in terms of the actual units themselves. Because let's say before Choi was really strong, but now with Alicia, with Char, they've kind of pushed Choi out of his spot in terms of DPS, so he's not as good as what he used to be. So in terms of the weapons, first, the shield, absolutely useless. If you get it, don't use it. Alright, the staff, it's good, but not that good because there's just not that many units that can take advantage of this weapon. The sword, in terms of like the basic attack, I'm going to put it as good, just because most of your damage normally from your DPSs comes from your skills or your crit rate. Okay, this one, the bow, is very good. Right, this bow does crit hit damage and it's super good for Alicia and Char and even Sa, because they all scale of crit. Same with the dagger, this is good, maybe not as good, but I would put these two still in very good, and this because core attack, it's usable, but honestly you won't use that for hunters too much. Alright, so that's the tier list in terms of the hunter weapons, and now for the SR and R list. Next we're going into SSR for the hunter weapons. Alright, first of all, this one, Jinchul, useless, you don't use him. Beck, I'm going to put as OP, because Beck is one of the best breakers in this game. He just breaks completely. It's so quick, right? And in later content, you're usually going to want to run, if you're going on hunters, you're going to run a DPS, a buffer, and a breaker. Okay, so definitely this one is a great breaker that you would use for most of your fights. Along with the breakers, you would put Sa in there as well. Okay. Next, you would have Lee Bora. Lee Bora I put as very good in terms of SSR, just simply because she's like the third best support in this game. You have now Min, you also have Mei Lin. They're much better support units than her, sorry. So that's why I also put Min's weapon and also Mei Lin's weapon in the OP section, because you would want to use either one of Sa, or you want to use, I forgot his name, Beck, that's his Beck. Beck's weapon as a breaker, and then Min and Mei Lin's weapon as a healer slash support. Okay. Next you have Choi. Choi's honestly not that good anymore, so Choi and Dongsu. Dongsu I'm going to put here because no one really uses him. Maybe some, but only if you have high ascension. There's just so many other better options for him. And lastly you have Lim. Lim I'm probably going to put ahead of these two, but not in the OP section, just because these are much better breakers and more versatile than Lim. Okay. Lastly, Char and Alicia's weapon, SS, because they are SS weapons. They're the top of the crop in terms of DPS, and again, in this game, DPS is king. Alright, so that's the hunter's weapons out of the way. Next, we're going to go into Jinwoo's weapons. Jinwoo's weapons, in terms of the SR, this Westwind, broken. Use it, you're going to love it, because honestly, this is probably one of the only SR weapons that are better than the SSR weapons if they're on like similar ascension levels. Okay. Next, we have this hammer. You're never going to use this, so I'm going to put in, can it be a bit useful? Redeero Bow, OP. Right, this is on par. If you don't have Westwind, use Redeero Bow. The same thing goes with Orb of Avarice. Okay, Orb of Avarice, the Light Sword, and your Demon Spear. Alright, the reason why I say this is because I have an A3 Orb of Avarice, and I also have an A1, I think, book, the Grimoire here. And when I use these and I go fight the wolf boss in the Encore dungeons, my A3 Orb of Avarice, that's level 60, does way more damage than my book at A1, but level 80. So this is a super strong weapon, okay? Does not lose out to any of these. Or this loses out to Westwind a little bit, but this is much easier to use. And honestly, if I'm not really feeling wanting to just do as much mechanics when I do dungeons, I bring this instead of Westwind. So I love this weapon. Okay, Saka Dagger, these are still good, right? This gives a bleed effect. Night Killer, not bad. Like, this book is also quite strong, but it's below the fire orb here, so it's not as good. If you don't have fire orb, you can definitely still use this and get through a lot of content. Okay, I'm gonna put here. And the rest of these weapons, honestly, you normally would not use this much. Alright, so I'm going to all put these as good. Just simply because these two water weapons, you have much better options in terms of the SSRs, the fire weapons here. You have the Orb of Avarice that well overtakes it. And if you have this Grimoire, it's going to be better than this sword. Dark weapons, there's just way too much good SSR dark weapons in there, such as these two. So you will probably never use this if you have these weapons. And Baruka's Blade can be actually quite good in terms of wind. In this game, there's not much good wind damage other than Westwind. So I would put it borderline good, maybe up here. Just because if you don't have Westwind or the SSR Demon King Longsword, you would probably use this. Alright, that's the SR. Now we're going to get into SSR. Alright, best SSR if you're going to reroll, Demon's King's Plum Sword. Or was it Demon Plum Sword? I can't remember. But Demon Plum Sword, this not only gives great AoE, has good damage, but you can pair it with almost any weapon in here, which a lot of these weapons can't do. The reason why I say that is because this gives a good buff. Let me show you. So I only have a Plum at A1, and you can see when you use Plum, you increase the crit hit damage by 3 times, and it stacks. It increases the crit hit damage by 12%, and it stacks up to 3 times. So that's 36% crit hit damage that you can get. If you use Full Bloom, which simply just needs you to dash and then quickly click on the skill, then, oh my gosh, instead of 12%, and this is actually crazy, because instead of it increases, and this is crazy because it increases your attack by 4% and your crit hit rate by another 4% for 8 seconds. So this gives really great buff. So this gives a really great buff. Okay, and let me go into Plum and let me show you why this is so good. So the Plum, you can stack its Plum Flower buff of increasing your crit damage by 12% up to 3 times. So you just simply need to go in when you're fighting bosses or fighting mobs, use this skill 3 times, and you can get an infinite of 36% damage increase. Right? If you use a dash before you do it, so everyone should be using Full Bloom, you increase your Swift Flight by 20%, but also increases your attack by 4 and your crit rate by 4%. It lasts only for 8 seconds, but that's plenty. Right, when you get to A1, oh my gosh. Right, you're amplifying draw, meaning your next attack of hitting, it increases the crit hit on the next attack by 32. So imagine you use Plum Sword and then you use Westwind right after, increases that damage by 32%. So this is crazy. Okay, and there's just so much more out here. So that's why Plum is a great weapon that you want to use, and I put that as SS Broken. Right, top of the list if you're re-rolling. Next we have probably the water weapons, because in this game now the meta has changed. Your water weapons are going to be your strongest, especially you want to fight Vulcan in your late game phase. and these two are probably going to be one of your best bets to put your resources in if you get them early, so you want to actually try ascend them as high as possible. Skadi and Water Grimoire, super versatile. Skadi will be a bit more DPS style. Grimoire has good DPS, but it freezes, so it's a bit more versatile in terms of its use. But because again, DPS is king, this will deal more damage. Next, we have the Moonshadow Blade and the Scythe. I personally like the Moonshadow more because it's daggers and Jinwoo uses daggers in the game, and I like the effects of its slow. But these two are very powerful. You get this for free by just completing challenges up to A1. So if you don't have Moonshadow, use this instead. Then comes these. I would put these three at probably the S, right? So they're still good. I should pop them here. They're still good and quite OP, but compared to these, I would not really use these. I would want to give an honorable mention to the Huntsman, just because this is the only weapon for Jinwoo that deals damage but also breaks. Right? So this is my guide of my thoughts on the tier list for solo leveling Arise right now. Again, I'm going to give you a recap. If you're just starting out, or if you are planning to think, oh, what weapons I should invest in, 100% Blum Sword, you want to get this first. Then I would focus on the water weapons. If you don't have use water, you can use these two dark weapons here. But as you go along, you're probably going to get some West Wind in their Ascensions. If you manage to get lucky and get to like an A3, A5 West Wind, this is going to beat this, right? If you have an A5 West Wind, it's probably going to be better than your A2 water book or your water gun right here. So keep note of that. All right, that's it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.